All right, good morning, everyone. We are going to talk about the attendance updates in Alabama. Before we get started, I have to always do my disclaimer. This video is used for training purposes only, that no real students or data is portrayed in this video, and any likeness to any real student is purely coincidental as we use a sandbox server full of fake information, fake students, fake data so that we don't violate any FERPA laws, and hopefully YouTube lets our videos stay up. All right, attendance. So there's been in a couple of the conversations that I've had with districts when they email about things that they think are kind of buggy inside of it, I think there's some misunderstanding about what is being affected in the attendance and what is not. So I really wanted to take an opportunity to go through the entire thing and update you where we're at. First, I want you to know this is going to be a multi-tiered process to get everything in attendance the way that we want it. So this is step one. Step one was to do two things for us. One, it was to get the attendance push from the teacher side going through like we used to have in iNow, so that when you mark a student absent in first period, it marks them the rest of the day. So that is in place. Step two is to get that daily code calculated without you having to go over there and manually touch that daily code. And basically it's using the minutes on the meeting side to produce this code. There's logic in there. Have we found some issues with it? Absolutely. But by y'all reporting them to me, I'm able to report them back to developer and we make updates through them. So I'm going to let you know what we know is working to fidelity, what is not, what the expectations are, so that as you guide your users through using this new process, you make sure you're guiding them on the right pages. So what I want to start out with first is from the actual teacher side. So I've got two logins. I'm logged into the admin side and I'm going to be logged in as a teacher because I want to show what expectations should be from the teacher side as far as one, taking the attendance, where they need to take it, and where you should expect it to feed through. So I'm going to go over to this other window, which is my teacher portal, and I'm going to sign in. So I've got lots of classes in here. So we're going to pretend that it is first of the day and we have all of our teachers to mark attendance, you know, within that first, 15-minute window of first period, homeroom, things such as that. That's typical throughout most districts. So I'm going to say in my first period class, it's going to be, where's the one that I want to mark? Well, my intro to engineering didn't go there. All right, so let me start with saying this. There are three ways that teachers take attendance inside of Power Teacher Pro or Power Teacher. There is the roster screen where I can click here. Whoop, let me go back, y'all. My screen's going all crazy today. Here. This is the screen that you see in all the tutorials I have out there because currently this is the only screen in which this attendance push is working on. We know that there is a multi-day and there is a seating chart option. If your teachers are using the multi-day or the seating chart, it is currently not working in your instance. So if they take attendance there, it is not going to push that attendance to all of the periods. So in some of the emails that I've received from districts saying, hey, the teacher took attendance first period, but it didn't push to second, third, fourth, and so on, what we found is they're hitting these two pages. Right now, the current functionality is working on this page. I will say as an update that I have worked with the developer. Oh, I've got people saying they can't hear or they can't see this screen. Are y'all seeing my screen? I just want to double check as I'm going through this. I can hear and see. Okay, so if everybody will just check it on their side because we have confirmation we can see and hear. Thank you. I have talked with the developer, and actually in my pilot site right now, we do have the seating chart and the multi-day working, but I want to give a heads up. So currently, can your teachers use seating chart and multi-day? No. When we make that update to push it to you, I will let you know when that is there. But I need to give a caution on multi-day, because if you do allow or instruct your teachers to use multi-day attendance, it's only going to work on the current day. And I'll tell you, we went back and forth about this, about do we allow it to work on all the days or do we allow it to only work on the current day? And we had a huge fear of making that push happen on days other than the current day when you're in multi-day. Because what we don't want to do is say you had a teacher out first period and you didn't mark the attendance for them from a sub over in the admin side, and they waited until the next day until they came back to school. Well, as the day rocks on and second, third, and fourth, and everybody else takes their attendance, we don't want that first period teacher coming in the next day, posting for their class yesterday, and overriding anything that was put in those other periods because maybe a checkout occurred or something like that. So because of that, and we don't want it to be a detriment to data in past days, when we do release this to the multi-attendance day page, they will not have the push go to any day other than the actual current day, which will always be kind of that highlighted color on this screen. So I hope that makes sense, and that we have that expectation there. It's only going to be on that current day. The seating chart is going to work beautifully when we push that over there. I tested that yesterday for the developer, so he's packaging that up so that we'll be able to apply it into y'all's plugin, hopefully by this weekend. But what we're going to do is look at what I'm going to call the traditional way that a lot of teachers take, which is from this single day record right here. So if I'm a teacher in this class right here and I go in to take attendance and I have my attendance code. Now remember that these attendance codes right here are set up by you as the district. You get to decide what teachers get to mark. Some of you only allow teachers to mark unexcused absence. Some of you allow teachers to mark tardies. That's completely a district decision. So whatever you allow is going to go in there. So if I say, okay, Ava is unexcused, so I'm going to mark her unexcused for the day. I'm going to mark Austin unexcused, Ashley unexcused. And then because I do allow these here to mark tardies, I'm going to say that Benjamin came in tardy. Now, what is going to happen when I press this submit button? Because I am over in the teacher portal and I'm acting as the teacher, it is going to push the codes throughout the day, with the exception of Benjamin. If a student is marked tardy by a teacher, it is not going to mark tardies in all the rest of the classes for the day. It's only going to mark that if they are actually put in an absent code on them on the teacher side. Very rarely do I see districts allow them to get the entire attendance code bank as a teacher. If you do, just know that if they use any other codes other than tardy, it will populate those for the rest of the day. So if you allow teachers to mark things like school function, doctor's notes, and things such as that, it's going to take those codes and push them. The only ones that it ignores in that push through is the actual tardy code, because that wouldn't make any sense to push a tardy code the rest of the day because they're only tardy in that one period. Now, I want to clarify something about using this tardy code because I get this from districts a lot. Some districts are scared to let teachers use the tardy code because they don't want it affecting their ADA and their ADM because they don't want minutes taken off. The only time a tardy code affects your ADA calculation is if you actually, hang on, y'all are saying WebEx is having issues. If your audio is not connecting, open the WebEx via the web app base. Okay, thank you for that, Rusty. Trying to make sure y'all can all hear this because this is a very important conversation. But what I was saying is the tardy code, it is not going to take minutes off of the kid's schedule by marking it in the teacher portal. The only time that the tardy code actually impacts the ADA calculation is if it's used in conjunction with a check-in or check-out from the admin side, because it's actually the minutes that are taken off of that day that contributes to the ADA, not the code. And that's going to be very important because I'm going to clear up a misconception that districts have had about attendance in general. It has nothing to do with this new interface with it when we get over to the admin side and start doing some check-ins and check-outs with present codes. So I've marked 3 students to be absent. I've marked 1 student to be tardy. To make sure no bugs work, when I submit this, when I go to the admin side, I should see these 3 students marked for all of their period absences for the rest of the day. And I should see Benjamin marked only tardy in first period. So when I hit submit, That's the spin. That's the new part that the teacher sees. So in the background, it's going through and it's pushing that code and it's doing that calculation for everybody. So I'm going to now minimize. And y'all, I do have the new UI turned on right here. So if you're still in the old UI, we can kind of talk through where the pages are that you see these things. So the page that I like to live on, and I tell everybody who runs a front office, if you really want to make your life easier, live on the page I'm about to show you because it really is easier. And I know some of y'all have been going to student records and modify attendance. Those are extra clicks that you really don't have to make. So I'm going to go to attendance, and down here, I've got this meeting attendance link. If you're in the old UI, when you're up under the functions list on the left and you go to attendance, it pops up a screen that has a lot of tabs. One of them is meeting. That's where you're going to go. This is going to be this same screen that I'm going to see. All right, so what do I have here? Remember the students that I marked absent? I marked Ava, I marked Austin, and I marked Ansley. Okay, and then I marked Benjamin tardy. Why do I not see Benjamin on this page right here? Because this page is for absences. Is a tardy an absence code? No, it is not. If I wanted to see them, I could come over here. Do you notice how up here you have these counts? These counts are filters. I can click and see any kid that's marked tardy. So let's check our first one. Did Benjamin only mark tardy in first period and not the rest of them? Yes, that is exactly what we expect to happen. All right, let's go back to my absence codes. Ava, did it mark her absent in first period and all of the rest of her periods? Yes, it did. For Austin, did it mark him absent in first period and the rest of the periods? Yes, it did. For Ansley, did it mark her absent in first period and the rest of the periods? Well, people are going, I don't know. Why are there blanks in third and fourth period? Well, if I were to click this pencil, you'll notice I have gray space. So what does that mean? Either she doesn't have anything scheduled in this school. Well, we know she doesn't have anything scheduled in this school. It could possibly be that maybe she goes over to a career tech center. And so she's cross enrolled into somewhere or remote enrolled into another school. But remember, when you're looking at attendance in PowerSchool, the only thing the computer program can look at is what is happening in your school. Why is that? Because attendance is tied to sections. Sections are school specific. Your sections for history and advanced kinesiology can't be seen in a remote school. So if you've got a student like Ansley who might be taking, welding over at the Career Tech Center, you're not going to be able to see those sections at the high school because those sections don't exist in your high school. Just like that high school, that Career Tech Center can't see your sections over at your high school because those sections don't exist at the Career Tech Center. This magical attendance update that we're getting done is not fixing the problem with remote enrollments right now. And I know that's still a big challenge in that you have attendance in two separate schools. Now, if you're doing meeting FTE, it will still look across all of those periods and get you the right state attendance. Okay. What it's not going to be able to do is update that daily record across all 4 of those periods. So if I have 2 periods at the high school and 2 periods at a remote school, those 2 schools still have to talk. That remote school is still going to have to tell that high school, hey, of all these kids that we had of yours today, these kids didn't show up. And if you want that daily code to be right at the high school, it's going to have to be manually updated. So I want to make sure that everybody understands that expectation of the remote school and the high school talking is still not there yet. I do have it on a list to talk about with the developer. We are I'm going to be honest with you, very fearful of getting that pulled off because of how attendance is tied to sections. Doesn't mean we're giving up on it, but right now, do not have any expectation of those 2 pieces working together. So right now, does everybody see what happened from the teacher side and what you should expect over there on the admin side? Right now, it only works from that main teacher roster. You will be getting an email from me when it works with seating attendance and when it works with multi-day. But even when I say that it works with multi-day, it's only going to work on the current day. No past days, no future days. Okay? So that's your teacher side. Now let's get into the good stuff. What happens when I'm over here in the admin side? And I see that some people are kind of putting some questions in. We're going to go back to those questions after we kind of go through all of these, because some of what I'm going to show you might answer some of those questions. All right, so I'm now on this attendance screen, and I see these students have been marked absent, and other people are in here marking absences at the same time that I am, because you notice more kids are showing up on here. Notice I've got kids who are marked for OSS. Now, when it comes to what you do as a daily school inside of here, what are some other tasks that might be brought upon that front secretary? Well, one of the biggest is subs. How do you handle when you have a substitute in a classroom and you have students that are absent? Some districts turn on the sub portal and let them log in and mark attendance just like teachers do, so that it'll feed over here for them. Some districts do not turn that option on. Some districts make the subs, send in the piece of paper. How many of you've had the paper that comes to the office and say, hey, I'm in, first period Stacy Royster's class, and these 3 kids are absent. Can you mark them absent for me? That can happen as well. So what I want to do is show you what happens when you do that. So if let's say a sub sent me a list, I could go over here to people, I can go to staff, and I can go to teacher schedules. Because as long as you have page permissions, if you push, so let me go and find teacher who's got a class in session right now. So let's say this class is in session. I can click take attendance, and notice there are same three modes, roster attendance, multi-day seating chart over here. Same thing, works on roster, not on these 2 yet. We'll let you know when all of those are. But if I click on this period, second period, I've only got this 1 student in here, and let's say that the sub said, hey, Aiden is not in class today. Okay, so then from the front office, I'm going to act and assimilate as the teacher, and I'm going to mark them unexcused absence, because I don't know why he's not here. I just know the sub said they're not here. I'm going to submit. Okay, we're going to let the page load. It's got him marked absent. I'm going to go back to the main screen. I'm going to go to attendance. I'm going to go to meeting attendance. When I look at that screen, here I have Aiden. So you'll see I marked in that intro to engineering class, and it pushed the rest of the way. Now, I will tell you, we have gone back and forth in development with this part right here of when you marking from the teacher side, it pushing all the way through. We had it open where it didn't, and then we had it where it did. And the reason we go back and forth is when you take attendance on the admin side, there is something known as the admin lock on a student record. Have y'all noticed when you mark a student ISS or OSS, or you do a check-in or check-out and you code it, that when it pushes it to the teacher side, it makes it gray where they cannot change it? Okay, that's called the admin lock. Any attendance that is taken from the admin side is locked once it hits the teacher side. And so we've gone back and forth with, when we post attendance as a sub, do we want that attendance to fall through the rest of the periods and end up locking? Because what that means is that if this student does show back up 3rd period and not come to the front office, the teacher wouldn't be able to change this to a present. We're trying to see if we can get the best of both worlds and push that down and be able to override it as the teacher. Not quite there yet. So I believe on your side right now, you still see it not follow through when you go and mark it in that roster side under teacher schedules. That is wise, because we want to leave that opportunity for the next teacher to be able to change or put in the code that they see for that teacher. But if you're a district that says, well, I just want them to take attendance 1st period and not have to do it anymore in the day, then you will have to make sure you make that change from the front office side. A lot of people will just have the teachers let the front office know, and the front office will make that change down through there. I will say of the entire state, about 80% of districts have changes go through the front office instead of through the classroom. So if a student checks in or out throughout the day, it has to go through the office. They don't have the teachers do the coding of the slips. They don't have the teachers try to put in a new code for the rest of the day. That's completely up to the districts and which way you decide to set that up. But make sure that you understand with how you do decide what you'll need to do as far as this tutorial for your users in your district. Okay. So this right here is showing both sides of teacher attendance, that from the actual teacher portal and that from the actual admin side. Now let's say all the attendance is going. What happens as we go throughout the day? So if I have a student that has been marked absent, checks in, checks out, something such as that, what do I do? Well, again, I said living on this page is going to be your best friend. I'm going to try to show you the easiest way to do your job with the fewest amount of clicks as possible. When teachers take attendance each period, if you stay on this page, all you have to do is, refresh it every now and then. As the bell rings and teachers are taking attendance, and it pops up any new students that you have. Because what's typically going to happen? It's first period, 100 kids have been marked absent, and then within the first 15 minutes, you've got 20 kids sitting in front of your desk all needing to check in. Like that's the truth of what happens in the day. If those kids have been marked absent by the teacher, then they should be on this list of students right here. So we know Ava was marked absent in first period and coded the rest of the day. Well, here comes Ava. She's walking in my office to check in. What's the easiest way to check her in? Is to click this little pencil right here, because that's going to slide that out. And so maybe she was, an hour late or 30 minutes late because she had a dentist appointment first thing in the morning. They were late getting to school. Okay, so I'm going to perform a check-in. So I'm going to hit this clock, and I'm going to say clock in, and let's say it was 8:23. So she's only missed, according to this, 21.7% of that first period. And it tells me right here, I need a tardy code for that period. She missed not enough time to be considered entirely absent for the period, but enough to be considered tardy. All right, because she was at the doctor, what am I going to use? Am I going to use doctor's excuse or a tardy? I'm going to use a tardy. Is it going to be excused or unexcused? Well, we consider a doctor's note to be an excused one. So we would do tardy excused. One of the biggest mistakes that I still see districts making is putting in doctor's excuse right here when they know that it came from a doctor. That is not what you do. That is an absence code. Okay, so make sure that you're following the correct tardy versus absence coding here. We do have this option to fill subsequent periods. Do I want the rest of the day filled with tardy? No. She's checked in, so what I'm actually going to have to do is remove those absence codes that was pushed in. So I might put a comment right here. She was at a doctor appointment. That way I know why it was a check-in. And I can hit save. So that clock is taking those minutes off of the day. But right now I still have all of these marked absent. So I'm going to flip these back to present, so that now I have the check-in with tardy first period. She's going to be there the rest of the day. When I hit save, it's going to spin that screen and it's going to say, hey, now you're saying that she's only missed 23 minutes of her entire 445 of the day. That's only 5%. She has not hit our 49% absence threshold in the state. They have to be present for 51% of the day to be considered present. So that means they can miss 49%. So where we did have it as an unexcused absence, now it's going to save it as that tardy. Because, yep, you've missed some of the day, so your daily code is a tardy. We're going to hit submit. So that's that automatic calculation that we're talking about. We want it going back and forth for. And so now, is Ava on my list anymore? Nope, because these are absences. So where has she moved to? There she is on the tardy list. And let's go check that daily record. So I'm going to come over here, and if you're in the old UI, you should have tabs at the top of your screen. You've got one that says meeting, one that says daily. I'm going to go back to my daily screen. Did it actually change her daily record? So let me see Ava. Well, she's not on this list. Why is she not on this list? Because it defaults to absence. Do I have a tardy? I sure do. So there's Ava. She's got her tardy absence on there. Okay, so you have to know what these buttons are to know how to navigate to find where that record went. All right, let's go back to the meeting side. Okay, that was a fast, quick, and easy check-in. All right, let's do another check-in. So let's say Austin comes in. So I'm going to check Austin in. And let's say it's a little bit later in the day. So let's say Austin decides to check in at 11:27. Okay. So at 11:27 says they missed 100% of that period and we're in period 2. So that means I need an absent code. So where was Austin at? Was he at the doctor? Was he, a parent excuse? What is it? So let's just say parent brought him in. Okay, and we're going to accept a parent excuse for this. Again, I don't want to fill subsequent periods because this is a check-in. I'm not applying this to the rest of the day. You can put, whatever kind of comment you want inside of there. Hit save. What I do want to do is figure out what has to go for the rest of the day here. So if they were parent excused in second period, I'm going to also apply that here. So I just click and it's going to update it because that was the last code that I used. But he's here for the rest of the day. So present, present. Okay, so I've done the clock in. It knows how many minutes has been taken off. I'm going to hit save. It's going to recalculate. And it's going to say, hey, he's missed 207 out of the 445. Very close to that 49%, but he didn't get it. So it's saying where he was absent, we're going to put a present code. Now, here is where we've got to do some work, and the developer is trying to fix this because we know, well, first of all, when it says none, PowerSchool means the default present code. So that's not an error. That means, hey, we're flipping them from unexcused absence to presence, which technically it is a present code. It's just not the present code that I need. I really need it to say tardy right there. Right now, the calculations don't do that. It's throwing it to a present because we're looking at the type of code used throughout the day and the majority of the day with it. PowerSchool is working on redeveloping that so that we can get it the right tardy code instead of a present code. But when it comes to the big scope of is it sending the data correct to the state, yes, that code still will work. It's just if you want to see that tardy code, which you need to see, right now it's throwing it as a present. You can still manually change it, and I'll show you how to do that. So I'm going to hit submit to just go ahead and take that present code. Okay, so again, that student came off, and he's actually over here on the present side. So I can see, I've got some kids who've been marked homebound. I can look at all these default presents, which is basically where he would have gone with that check-in, check-out. And I can watch the kids move. And on each one of these, you're going to see it update on that daily side as well. Now, what about check-ins? Well, check-ins are not going to be on this screen because that's all the kids who are already here when first period attendance, second period attendance, or whatever was taken. So whenever you go to check one in, a lot of people don't realize that there's an add button right here. So I'm going to go to add, and you can search for any student in the district. So let's go find Mickey Mouse. And I'm going to click on Mickey. Okay, Mickey's here today. Teacher said he was here. But maybe he's got to come and check out because he's going somewhere else throughout the day. So I'm going to click the clock, and we're going to clock him out. And let's say he is clocking out at 9 o'clock in the morning. Okay, so if I'm at 9 o'clock, I'm still in first period of my day. It's not enough time to miss the whole day because these are block classes. So it's telling me a present code, which would mean it's a tardy code. So for whatever reason, whether it's tardy excused, tardy unexcused, I'm going to use that for that period. Maybe I want to make a note that he's going to the doctor, he's going to get his driver's license, he's going to, whatever it is that you're allowing this kid to do. And you hit save. What do I want for the rest of the day? Well, what kind of excuse did they give? Maybe they are going to a doctor's appointment. Maybe they showed you a slip. So you might start that as a parent excuse until they bring a doctor's note, something such as that. Whatever it is. So let's just pretend, I don't know, that it's unexcused. We don't know why he's leaving. He's just leaving. Okay. So I've marked that he was there for part of first, but he's leaving for the rest of the day. So all of those are absences. And when I hit save, it's going to take that and go, yes, he was previously present, but now because he left at the beginning of first and is going to be gone the rest of the day, those minutes are being taken off. So it's enough to be absent. So what it does, when it does hit that threshold, it looks at all of the codes that have been used throughout that day. And whichever absence code has the largest percentage of the day, that's the code it's going to give. So if you have, like, I don't know, you know how we have some kids that will be late to school and say it was a doctor's excuse, but then they want to go check out early and they'll use a parent excuse. If you have combinations of them, it's going to look at the amount of time each one of those codes have, because if its overall attendance is supposed to be an absent, it's going to put it with the one that had the majority of it. So that's what you should expect to see inside of there. So in this case, I use the same code, so it's unexcused. I'm going to hit submit. Okay. So there's Mickey Mouse. That's where I entered him in on. So remember, he checked out. So now he's on my absence list. Well, I mean, we all know this. What if they check out at 9 o'clock to go to a doctor and then they come back? How do I process that check back in, and how does it work with this new update? Well, since he's on my absence list, I'm going to click this pencil and I'm going to go back to my little clock, and let's say it's 11:30 and he's now here. So I'm going to clock in. Okay. So it says, all right, you're now in third period at 11:30, and you haven't been enough to be absent. So you're going to get the majority of third period in because it's at the beginning of third period. So that's just going to be a tardy here. So I'm going to hit save. So he's back in class, which means he's no longer going to be absent there. So I'm flip that to present. And did he bring a note? Did he say where he was from when he checked out to when he checked back in? All right, so let's say he went to the doctor. So they brought you a doctor's note saying he was seen in the doctor's office. All right, I'm going to flip this to doctor's excuse. So now I've got this student who checked out in first period to go to the doctor. He went to the doctor and he came back in. So that's why I have two little clocks on this record. By the way, guys, y'all can clock students in and out as many times in the day as they keep popping back and forth. And trust me, I've sat in your seat, and I know that there are times that you will have a kid come and go 4 times throughout the day. It happens. So when it does, you just keep moving it and you hit save. And what it's going to do, it's going to go back and look at all those minutes and go, okay, based on all of those check-ins, all of those checkouts, it's going to look at those minutes. So now I only have 153 minutes, only missed 34%. So I'm changing it from that unexcused to a tardy. And here's a good thing. We actually, the code is right and will hit those tardy codes when you're doing those checkouts. So that's a good thing on us. So we know, yeah, he missed enough of the day to be tardy, but not enough to be absent. So his overall daily code is going to be that tardy. So it's doing that calculation for us. All you have to do is go through and process the check-ins and the checkouts. Now, I've shown everything from this screen because I firmly believe if you will stay on this screen, it will make it a lot easier. Now, the one thing that I know gripes people that this process took away from us is when you have this add button, the keep open box really is useless at this point. Because every time you go and search for a student, you've got to hit that submit page to acknowledge that daily record update. And when you do that, it closes this screen. So where I might have 3 kids in front of me right here to check in, I'm going to have to grab the first one, check them in. Grab the second one, check them in. But remember how I said that this is a multiple iteration release of fixing this? Let me tell you what step 2. So once we get this piece right here working 100% and y'all have found all bugs that can be found, y'all gonna love this. Because the next part of us to fix attendance is allowing y'all to do mass check-ins and mass checkouts. That is what is next on our list of things to do, is that we are going to make it where if you are, right there and you've got 20 kids in front of you and they're all checking in at 8:15 because they all came in 15 minutes late, and I know that happens, you'll be able to grab all of those kids at one time and check them in or check them out if you need to. So keep that in mind, that things are coming to still make this even better than where we're at right now. This is just the first part of this. Now, can you perform these check-in and outs on the other pages? Absolutely. I know that there are some people that no matter what are going to want to search and go to a student every single time. And so if I wanted to search Mickey Mouse right here and go into the record, can I still go into this modify attendance? Or if you're in the old UI, when you go into the student record, you know, under administration, there is a line that says enter attendance. If you click on that, it takes you to this page. It's like the week-long view. Can I still process check-ins and check-outs from this screen right here? Absolutely, you can. It just takes more clicks to do it this way, but does the feature work the same way? Yep. So let's say that, all right, this student was absent yesterday. Okay. So do y'all see today's Monday? Whoa, today is Tuesday. It feels like a second Monday, but yesterday they were marked absent. So are you the district that when a student is absent, the notes have to go to the front office and the front office updates the codes, or do you allow the teachers to update the codes? Okay, I want you to think about that, because if the teacher updates the codes, remember, once you go past that current day, if I am Miss Howell and I am Mickey's first period teacher and I'm allowed to update the code as a teacher on day 2, if I mark my class as doctor's excuse, is it going to fill doctor's excuse through the rest of the way? No, it's not. So if you want those codes to be consistent, you might have to think about who's actually doing the changing. Either you will have to make sure every one of the teachers updates their code for that day in attendance, or you can update it through the front office. Now, with our attendance update, there's 2 ways to go about doing this. I can click here. So I'm on this screen of all day. I'm on the meeting attendance side. I can click here and go, okay, he was at the doctor all day yesterday, so I'm going to put doctor's excuse, and I can click this set all button, and it will write all of those codes. When I submit, it'll condense them and go, hey, for yesterday, Mickey missed all day and we put a new code in, swap it from UA to DE over on the daily side. And yep, that's what I want it to do. Okay. Another thing that you can do is actually push it from the daily over to the meeting. This is also a very quick way to go through and adjust attendance. So I can go to the attendance overview page. So we're all used to seeing this screen where it kind of pops up to that meeting attendance, but in the bigger month view of everything. If I click on daily, we're all used to seeing this right here. I could click on the date here. So let's pretend this was all still saying unexcused. Let's pretend I haven't changed it to doctor's excuse yet. And let's pretend it came in with a parent excuse. So I could, from this side, actually change the daily code and have it right to every one of the meetings. So this is a process where you have 2 options of working attendance. We can work from the meeting side and have it filled daily, which is typically what you're going to want to do. Or if you just need to do a one and done, you want to update the daily code because I brought that overall note and it needs to go to every one of the periods. So this wasn't a check-in or check-out situation. This was just an overall completely absent all day long situation. I can update it from the daily side, hit submit, and push it through. And notice there's no calculation that needs to be done because you told it to do it from that attendance side. Now, one of the other things that shocks a lot of people are these numbers on this screen right here. I've had so many people email and say, Stacy, the numbers aren't matching anymore on the amount of time in the day if they do a check-in or check-out. So let me go. Let's take today, for example. When I look at this daily side for Tuesday today, you see there's only 445 minutes. Or there is 445. It's the whole day. But if I go over here to meeting, and let me click in to today, it says there was 292. There is no expectation that these 2 numbers should meet, okay? The only way you're going to get those numbers to match up is if you actually process a clock in or clock out on the daily side, and we're not doing that. We're doing all of that on the meeting side. It is okay that those numbers are different because on the daily side, Our goal is to get that code so that we can run reports. When we get all this settled down and we get this, like I said, you help us get all these bugs worked out, we are going to start pumping out some attendance reports that are going to help you figure out what's going on in your school. What you're going to be able to see in Unified Insights reads a lot off of daily codes. So getting that code in there is going to help you. Whether you have your FTE set up to look at meeting or daily is still going to look at the things the correct way. Okay? Meeting is still going to look at minutes, and it's going to look at the minutes across all of the periods in any school that you have. Daily is just going to look at that code. It never looks at the minutes anyway. It always looks at the code. And so that's why we're not worrying about y'all having processing a check-in on both sides. We just need the code right on the daily, and we need the time and codes correct on the meeting. And for districts or elementary schools where y'all just have that one period throughout the whole day, it's like working simultaneously the same thing. So you don't have to worry about trying to do it on both sides. And if you are that elementary school where all you have is that one period and you have been working on the meetings, the daily side, it is perfectly okay for you to keep working on that daily side because it's going to feed back into that meeting in that little box like what I showed you a minute ago. And guys, that daily side can be done still from these boxes. So remember, I have my meeting attendance box here. I have my daily attendance box here. Do you also know that you can change this date at any point in time? So let's say a student came up to your desk and they were absent yesterday or 2 days ago and they're like, hey, Ms. Royster, here's my note. I forgot to give it to you. I can come up here, flip this date to yesterday. Now I see all my kids who were absent all day yesterday. So let's pretend it was Braxton. Braxton was absent yesterday and he just brought me his note. So there was no check-in, check-out. He was just out. So I know that he was at the doctor. So I need to just push that note over to everywhere. It's going to go through and make that change for me. Okay? And do those updates. You can work from either side of that student record. But if you ask me, the easiest place for you to keep processing your check-ins and your check-outs, and as this goes through, is going to be on this screen right here. So the few things that I want you to make sure that you know, pushing the attendance from teachers, seating chart, and multi-day doesn't work. Not yet. It's on its way. Don't expect the calculation of minutes to match on the meeting and daily side. Our goal is to get those codes correct. Okay? I do know there's the issue with the daily not triggering the tardy and actually triggering an actual code. And we've seen things where school functions, school activities. This one is probably the biggest misunderstanding, and it's actually a misunderstanding of the core concept altogether. So I want to do something on a kid. I want to add a kid. Let's see if I can find one with a full schedule. Okay, Alexander's got a full schedule. Good. Let's say this kid is on the football team. Okay. And it's Friday and y'all are leaving after lunch to head to the game because you got to drive 4 hours or something. Very common. How many of y'all in here mark like your school functions whenever you have teams leave early? Most people? I got a question for you. Before I even say anything, I want to ask. I want y'all to throw this in chat. Do you check those kids in and out when you do that? Like, do you actually process a clock in or a clock out? It wouldn't be a clock in, I guess. A clock out when your kids leave to go somewhere. I'm hoping to see a lot of no's, but I figured I would get some yeses in there. Okay. You just changed the code. So when you perform a clock out, and y'all, I saw this a lot with the COVID codes, and people could not understand why COVID absences were counting against some districts when it wasn't supposed to. COVID was a present code. What I found districts were doing is they were doing a check out and then putting the COVID code on them. When you perform a check out or a check in, when you hit that clock, it is taking minutes off of the entire day. I don't care what code you use. And a lot of people thought, well, but if I put it with the present code, it doesn't take the time off. That is not how it works. That clock in and clock out takes the time off. Okay? When you clock in and clock out, you're saying they are not involved in school. If they are going on that trip, okay, so in this case, if it's a football game, we're going to play quiz while we're in here, y'all. Which one do you use? Do you use field trip, FT, or do you use school activity, SA? It's a mix again. SA is probably the more correct one to use. Are you going to get in trouble if you use FT? No, but that is the more correct one to use. But you don't process it as a checkout. All you would do is actually put that code on whatever periods they were going to do. Now, hopefully, most of y'all do that push from like the front office. You know how to do the multi-day change inside of there? We'll show that in just a minute. But if I hit save right here, so remember, this is Alexandra that I'm looking at. Okay, and it's going to say, hey, she was present, and now I'm going to put her daily code as school activity. Now, this is one of the things that I've got PowerSchool working on because this is kind of glitchy right here. Technically, it's still present. If it hit a certain amount of it, maybe if we hit over 49%, but you're not going to hit 49% on these right here. So overall, we want to see present. We know that those school activities are just overall markings within the medians, but for the school, we just need them present. They're working to get this where it will stay a present and not necessarily flip the daily code to that overall one. But we're having to kind of adjust on that. Okay. So I'm going to hit submit. Oh, Mandy just brought up something about, let's pull that up, Mandy. Let's see. I think the new attendance manual is on here. Yep. School activity. Oh, you are correct, Mandy. They did update that, and I completely forgot about that. So good call on that. School activity is a school event not supervised by a school employee, an activity that is school related where you are representing. So a college visit, a military. So there's a lesson for us. That's correct. It is considered a field trip now. A school event that is supervised by the LEA for curriculum, associated trip, school club, athletics, etc. So we should all mark those FT, not SA. You can find them and fix them. Again, in the big scheme of things, is it harming anything? Absolutely not. How many of y'all have the link to this set of codes so that you know how to code these, just out of curiosity? Do I need to throw this link in chat? I will, just to, in case anybody doesn't have it. There is a link. I tell everybody, if you're an attendance clerk, like, print this out, laminate it, and stick it beside your computer. Because a lot of people, I think a lot of people overmark attendance, not realizing there are codes to use for certain things. I get a lot of questions about students who check out to go to therapy. How many of y'all have students that check out that go to therapy because it's part of an IEP or 504? I've seen so many districts who, when they check the kids out, will put a doctor's excuse on them when you shouldn't. If it's part of their 504 or their IEP, you actually get credit for them while they are on, at those therapy sessions, because you get a present code. This one right here, this SP code, and it doesn't count against you. But again, if it's a present code, are you going to do a check out? No. A check out takes time away from the day. You're just going to put the code on there to denote they're not in the class during that time. They are somewhere else. That's the whole reason that we have present codes in PowerSchool, is because we're noting that the kid is somewhere else, so that in the case of an emergency, we know who's on campus and who's off campus. But are they truly absent from the day? And I know that when we were in iNow, for all of my old iNow lovelies, we checked in and out for everything because we had those all day other codes. PowerSchool doesn't work like that. So you only have to check in and out when they are truly missing time away, that it is not a present code in which they are getting credit for. Okay. Now tardies, again, they miss part of the day, so that's a check in or check out. But when it's things for 504, when it's things for school function, truancy, not truancy, field trips, the old COVID codes, you should have never processed check-ins and check-outs on those. They should have just had the code entered inside of there. Okay, So I'm going to go back to the meeting attendance. All right, so we've covered checking in, checking out. I guess the other thing to kind of show right here is that if you have a student who has been marked absent throughout the day, as teachers are going through, those codes can update. So let me do something with Mickey and see if I can demonstrate this. If I go into Mickey right here, let's move him back to present, and I'm going to delete all these check-ins. Let me reset him pretty much. So took away that one. Let me take away that one. By the way, did you know you can delete check-ins and checkouts if you make a mistake? That's how you do it. All right, so I'm going to set them all to present and hit save. Let me get him back in present status and submit. Okay, so now real quickly, because I don't have his first period teacher as a teacher I can log into, let's pretend first period marked him absent. Set all. Save. Yep, I want him absent. Oh, and I just realized that's not going to work. What I was wanting to do for y'all is not going to work because I set it from the admin side. So when I do that, I've just locked it for all the teachers. Okay, so but let's say second period came in and they marked him present. Okay, so maybe he skipped the first period, didn't come check in. So when they hit second period, that teacher will be able to change that UA to a P, to present, or not P, but the blank. And when it does, it's going to move second, third, and fourth to become present. Okay. And then if third period comes in and says, well, Mickey's not here, and they mark him absent, it's going to mark him absent third and fourth. Same thing. Let's say you've got a first period teacher who forgets to take attendance. Okay. If they forget to take attendance, but then second period does take attendance, so present and first, second marks him absent, it's going to mark him absent second, third, and fourth. Now, this is going to be an important message to drive home to your teachers. It is very important that they take attendance in real time. Because let's say you're that first period teacher that forgot to take attendance. So second period takes attendance, third period takes attendance, fourth period takes attendance. And then at the end of the day, you decide as that first period teacher to go back and take attendance. Guess what's going to happen? You're going to override everything second, third, fourth did. And so if it's something different from what they have, you just change those attendance records. Now, the good thing about this is there is a change history in here. You can always go in. If you ever wonder, hey, what is happening? Who is changing? You can always go into the attendance overview and look at the change history. And it will tell you who is making the attendance changes, what was that code before, what was that code after. If it was actually pushed by a teacher, you'll see it. So you see all these right here are changes that I've made today. If I go back to yesterday, you will see this was where the teacher added it from meeting attendance. You see it was the teacher. It was changed by the teacher. You can see when the teacher takes attendance. I know some of y'all have been wanting to know that. How can I tell when the teacher posted attendance? Your change history. If you've never looked at that, everything can be shown inside of change history. So I know it was done at 4:09 p.m. This first period teacher went and changed his kid's attendance at 4:09 p.m., which could have potentially messed up something. So you can look to see who is changing it. And I've used this a lot to help figure out where issues might be inside of this. So I think I have shown you each part of it so that hopefully you have a little bit of understanding. I'm going to start going back through some of the messages now, or some of the questions. I'm going to start at the top. That was about hearing. James had asked, is this optional if we already use daily or meeting? If not, when is the drop dead date for changing over? James, we want everybody to be swapping over to daily now so that we can start getting some better reports as far as being able to use daily codes, because right here for the state, we can't give any daily reasons till everybody makes this swap over. Welcome back, everybody. For everyone who's never been on a WebEx with me, at the 1 hour mark, WebEx always makes me disappear because they think that you get tired of me after an hour, and I know you do. So what I was saying, James had asked, is this optional if we already use daily or meeting? If not, when's the drop dead date? There's no drop dead date, but the sooner the better. We do need daily codes starting calculating on everybody across the state. And so you need to be collecting daily if you've not checked that box in your attendance preferences to start collecting it. If you are collecting it and you don't use this enhanced feature, you're really just causing your users more work because they're manually having to go to both sides to update those records. And there's really no need to, with the way the attendance overview is going to be pushing in and taking some of that off of them. Kara, if I have a student that withdrew the first day of school, how can a teacher not see that? That Kara, well, Kara, hold that question. That's going to be on a different topic. But I will tell you, it's just a toggle switch of showing withdrawn students. Our primary and intermediate level schools have ever only used the daily side. Since we don't have periods, we've not needed the meeting side. And Lindsay, that's perfectly fine. So that's going to be where if you have like that one period that goes over the whole day, you technically have a meeting side, but it is just literally an identical twin of that daily side. So as long as you're working on that daily side, you are perfectly fine. The whole goal is to get those daily records. Kathleen, if checking out and not in and a student is present for most of the class, why put a tardy code? They are present for most of the class. Because in the attendance code manual, the definition of missing any time that is not enough to be an absence is a tardy. So even if they're present the most of the time, if they miss any point in time, 1 minute, 2 minutes, they have still missed a portion of that class or that day, which is why that tardy record is there. And if you look, I don't think in the overall attendance manual, there is a glossary. I don't think the appendix has been loaded on here. Let me go here. And let me show you this definition. And this is one of the hardest things to get parents to understand, but here is this definition. Let me zoom in on this. Y'all see this definition of tardy? Arriving at school or class after the specified start time, not attending a full instructional day. So if a student misses any minutes of the day, but not enough minutes to be considered an absence, they're considered a tardy. And I know tardy in like our mind is just always being late to school. So especially those kids who leave with like 2 minutes left because the parents don't want to wait in the line to, the car out of line, that's still a tardy even though it's the end of the day. And parents will, I've had them call before and go, why do I have 15 tardies? Well, you checked them out 5 minutes before school got out 15 times. They've missed that time. So not attending a full day, full period results in a tardy. Again, I had a student to check in school at 11:10 a.m. Computer shows absence since she missed 54.7% of the period, and I put her absent with doctor's excuse and not marked her tardy. Is that the correct thing to do? So if they've missed over that 49% threshold, then you're going to want to use one of those absence codes. And so you would have to figure out which one of these, get rid of that, is the most appropriate. Amanda, we have an instance where a student was skipping that a teacher entered. When the front office changed skipping to a present code for the remainder of the day, the daily side did not update and the submit button was not on that changed page. So Amanda, that would depend on where the office entered in that present code. And right now on the teacher side, it's not pushing through for y'all because we want to give the teacher the option to overwrite that as if it were a natural progression in the attendance day for them. And if you just did it over to the meeting side, you would have to make sure to adjust those meetings in that actual student record. Janice, show the steps that we would need to do to reconcile attendance when we move to this. Oh, thank you so much, Jenna, for asking me that. Because in all of this, do I know that there are going to be days where something gets messed up and you're like, oh, we missed this code, we forgot to do that, we didn't check it, or somebody accidentally hit an override button and it didn't update the daily. or you're a district that's been, maybe not even calculating daily up until you turn this on for your district. You're like, okay, when I say now we're going to start collecting these daily codes, how do I make sure I go back to all of them? There is a function that has been placed in here. In order to use it, you have to have a student selection. I would say, though, this is a very heavy taxing process. Do not select a whole bunch of students at one time, like 300 max. I wouldn't try to do more than that, or you're going to wait a long while. So let's say that I choose my 12th grade. Let's do 12th grade females, because maybe that'll cut down enough of them. Okay, that gives me 170 kids. Okay, I got a student selection. So if you want to do your whole school, you might want to do it grade level by grade level. I have done 300, 400 at a time, and it runs fine. You have to wait a couple minutes. In your attendance, if you're in the new UI, you've got a link down here called Daily Attendance Calculation. If you're in the old UI, when you go to your attendance and you have the tabs, there's one that says Functions. Click on the function ones. It's going to be the very bottom one in that list. This allows you to go back and reconcile. So if you wanted to look at all of the, attendance codes for a whole date range, like if I needed to run it from the beginning of school to today, I could. Or if I just want to go, hey, I want to go check yesterday's attendance dates, I could say run it from the 28th to the 28th. I want to see, did anybody make a mistake in calculation? I can hit submit, and it's going to look through that group of kids that I just ran, so that 170, and if I had any mistakes, it would put them right here, and it would list them. Let me see if I can find one, a date range that might give me some mistakes. Let's run it just for like last week to this week. Surely I've got something because we've been playing all in this. It's going to take a minute for this to run. Okay, so here we count one kid and it says a match. So if there is any, you're going to see kind of that little X override, but it will allow you. So Jana, if y'all haven't had the daily on and you turn it, you're going to get list pages of kids. All you would need to do is submit it, and it will automatically write those daily records over for all of your days that you have the meeting correct. It'll go look at every one of those meeting minutes, and it'll go, okay, based on this and the code you use, it's going to write that daily record over there to them. So there is this reconciliation that can be done at any point in time for anything. Now, one other thing that I want to make sure you understand, in doing these calculations, the one thing that it does not do, because of a lot of us still look at what's called that DAV value, that 0 or 1, that's what the state reads. That calculation is still not captured until night. Like that nightly process still has to run to actually put the 0 or 1 on this student record. So I know some people will use that level data report, the daily attendance calculation report, to see if there's any mistakes between the meeting side and the daily side. That's using that DAV calculation. You still won't be able to use that report until a day in the rear. So like if I wanted to run today's, I'd have to do it tomorrow if you're using that report. This right here is your more real time, looking at the minutes, looking at the daily calculation to get that reconciliation up there. Karen, do we need to leave the elementary at the two-way, or can we do the one-way? So Karen, when you turn that bridge period off in your bell schedule, it's not going to matter if it says two-way or one-way because it's not using that anyway. So you're absolutely fine. If you are going to leave the bridge period because you're just going to keep that one period talking like you always have, make sure it's a two-way. Let me scroll down. Right, my teachers on junior high and high school level are marking students absent, and then they show up a couple minutes tardy and they can't change the UA to tardy. Just trying to see if they can change that. T Hall, you should be able to do that now, because if a teacher goes in, so let's go back in as that teacher. So remember I had that first kid, Benjamin, who I marked tardy? As long as the teacher entered the attendance, they can change the attendance. If you push the attendance from the front office, that's when a teacher cannot change it. Like pushing from the admin side locks it. But remember how I took attendance here? And I had that one teacher I marked tardy. And yes, I get that this completely happens all the time. A teacher, I was a classroom teacher for 13 years. I get this. I marked Benjamin tardy. See how I still have the box? But do you see I don't have the box on Ava? Because Ava we marked her over on the admin side. That's what's called the admin lock. I can't change anything that was entered on the administrator side. But if it was entered by myself as a teacher or another teacher, I can still override it. So, like I said, I was in the classroom 13 years. I would take attendance, mark a kid tardy, and as soon as I press the submit button, there comes their little tail around my door coming in, and you're like, ugh. All you got to do is come back in here. And if you're going to say, okay, you made it, hit present and submit. Remember Benjamin? We looked at him earlier. He was tardy. If I go look at Benjamin now, I'm just going to pull him up. Oh, Billingsley. I was like, what is his last name? And I go into Benjamin. And I look here, notice there's no longer a daily record here. Or excuse me, there's no longer a meeting attendance record here. And if I flip to the daily side, he's now present. So it will work from the teacher side as long as it was the teacher that originally entered it and not the administrator that pushed it down. If you push it from the office, it locks. What do you ask? Do you just put SP for the periods out for the day? Yes. If you know that kids are leaving for those school functions, for those field trips, for those meetings, you don't do, if it's a present code, okay, again, if it's one of the present codes that you are sending them somewhere for, you don't process that check in or check out because it takes that time off of the day. You don't want to do that. Okay. Just to show you, let's go into meeting. Let's go into this week. And so let me show you what it does. Oh, is this the kid that's only got 2 periods? It is, but it'll still work. So let's say I do a clock out at, 9:08 because they were going to, we're taking them all over to the university for a tour or something. Bill. Save. Oh, that would be AM, not PM. We're not keeping the kiddos that late. So I've got field trip, but look what it did to my minutes. Because I processed a check out, it took those minutes off, which means it's going to take that out and try to calculate this as an absent. It's going to, the code and the number of minutes, the DAV value is not going to be right. So when you have them that they are in school, you're giving them credit for being in school, but they're just off campus, you just put the code. You do not put this clock in or clock out on them because it will adversely affect your ADA calculations for that. Anna, we have schools that are showing unexcused on daily, but doctor's excuse on meeting. So Anna, that means somebody is going in there and manually adjusting them. Look at your change history and see who's making those changes. All right, Dorinda, wait, if there is an emergency, fire, bomb threat, etc., and we do not use the check-in or check-out, we just assume they are out the whole period. Yes, it does attach it to the whole period that it's in there, Dorinda, because again, you don't want to take those minutes off of there for those present codes that we typically enter in those group type situations. What code do you use when a student is sent home by the nurse? Excellent question. So if y'all had not seen the new updates to the attendance codes, they did update the DE code. It is now a doctor and a nurse excuse code. So this is pretty much for healthcare professionals when they have given that execution to take the kid out of school. An excuse provided by a medical professional, i.e. a doctor, a nurse, a therapist, chiropractor, teledoc, blah, 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 blah. So yes, if your nurse is sending them home, you now will use this DE code for those as well as a doctor's excuse. When I make changes in meeting as an admin, the change is not showing taking place on the daily side. Any suggestions? So in that case, I would say we need to check your settings because it could be that the settings are not set up correct for this to work. I will also say this, we have found one plugin that causes issues with this. If you are a district that has a plugin installed called something to the effect of show learning preferences or display learning preferences, you need to remove that plugin from your server because it will cause and interfere with this attendance plugin. We have not figured out what it is in the plugin that's causing the issue. We just know it does, and we tell you need to remove it because that can cause an issue. But the biggest thing is make sure in your settings, and this is school by school, that in your school setup, under your attendance preferences, make sure you have your meeting and daily and clock in and clock out enabled. And you've got to have these boxes down here. So enable the daily code calculation. This is what turns this feature on. Okay, this is what gets those periods writing and getting that daily calculation. Do not check this box. This means something completely different from what we think it means, and it's not for us to use. The percent threshold to set is 49. Okay. And then you have to make sure that you are checking your daily bridge out. Now, in doing some of your discoveries, the other thing that can prevent codes writing or things going to the daily side is if you have somehow went in and marked some of your periods in the bell schedule or sections in your master schedule to not count in ADA. Let me go back into the meeting attendance and pull up a kid. So let's just go into here. I always tell people if you're seeing things not work right, look at this chart, because a lot of times this column over here can tell you if you have excluded something, and if you have something excluded in ADA, the attendance process isn't going to touch it. It's not going to write a thing to it when you write it from the periods. It's not going to calculate it. It's not going to move it to a daily record. So there are a few things that could be causing that block. We would just have to dig into each one of them. Can you tell me if the admin side of PowerSchool is supposed to show the change history? I'm unable to see it on my end. So that's a security setting. Your district PowerSchool person has to turn on change history for a role that you have been assigned in order for you to be able to see those change history links on students. I highly suggest that change history is turned on for your top tier users so that you can track and see. That is how I discover when I get on calls with districts and we're trying to troubleshoot what's going on. I check change history to figure out what took place so that we know what's the issue and how to fix it. That helps me figure out, is it user error? Is it the actual program doing something at fault? Did some import happen overnight? PowerSchool maintenance make a change? We found out so many issues by looking at that change history. But that is a permission that will have to be given to you by your district admin. We like the meeting attendance screen for check-ins and check-outs, but we have to rely on attendance overview modifier for check-outs and some check-ins because we have to confirm approved contacts for check-outs and count parent notes. We rely on that and would love help on how to do this more efficiently. Let me think about that, Allison. I will say we've got some things in the works and a customization for a plugin possibly on some parent alert things. I do know, like if you have the quick contacts plugin, it'll overlay your contacts so you can see who to call, who to do, but I don't think that one activates on this screen. Let me see. No, because that's going to be on the individual student record. Let me think on that one, Allison, and see how I can get that. I'm going to mull that over and put that on my to-do list. Suzette, speaking of the two attendance code updates, the AP code for alternate placements is a present code. How do you handle the reality of the student in the alternative placement who is actually physically absent for the day? So in that case, if you had the alternative placement code because you were keeping that you had put them somewhere else, you would actually need to change that to an absent code at that point, Suzette. Patrick, if a student is suspended out of school under incidents and you put the date range of the OSS action given to the student, why does that not show up on their attendance? So Patrick, that would mean that you don't have the setup and attendance preferences actually set to push that over there. This also works with the ISS and the OSS. So just to show you, and again, if your district doesn't have all the settings set up, it's not going to work correct. But let me go into Mickey Mouse. And let's go into behavior and incidents. Still a little laggy. I'm going to create a new one real quick. Let's make this as simple as possible. So let's discipline today, you know, title, blah, 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 is a description. It happened on campus. You can put your descriptions. It's prepared by me. Let me add in Mickey Mouse. Add, this is the offender. He had a bad day and just cussed me out this morning. Y'all ever have those mornings? Say good morning, they're just having a bad day. So I'm going to add the behavior. So behavior is profanity. Add it. Drag it over to the student. Then I'm going to add the action. And let's say you gave them ISS for 3 days. So I'm going to start it today through the 31st. And on 31st. Again, y'all do not forget to put this actual resolution date on there. Add. Drag it over. Okay. If you have your discipline set up to push attendance through, then you're going to get this attendance related actions area down here. You're going to click this little pencil. And you're saying, hey, you assign them ISS. Do you want to set this for the range? So in this case, I'm setting it for a day he was actually absent. You wouldn't do that in real life, but I've been playing with the data, so just go with me on this. I'm going to set it for all. Pretend like the kid had been here. And when I click OK, and then I submit the incident, it's writing it, and there it goes. It says, hey, we're going to take these previous codes, pretend they had all been present, because we're going to, you know, pretend that's what had happened. And they're now all in ISS for those 3 days, and hit submit. So, Patrick, if your district has it set up correctly, and I've got a video that walks all through that attendance setup so that you can make sure it is set up correctly, it will push those attendance codes for you, and you do not have to go back into that attendance record. Allison, is there a possibility of getting a checkout code for meeting attendance so we do not have to use the tardy for checkouts? It's confusing to teachers and messes up our tardy counts when we try to discipline for tardy numbers. Okay, first I'll say that's going to be a Dr. K. Warfield question because she is over the attendance manual and the attendance committee, and they decide on all changes. I just put the codes in PowerSchool. But something to keep in mind, if we did that, we would have to have a checkout on every kind of code, because you can have a checkout and it end up being a doctor's note if you miss enough of the day. So one of the things that we're working on when we get all this, you know, functioning, is to give you some better reports so that you can see who is actually just tardy to class versus tardy to a check-in or check-out. Like, we're going to give you some check-in, check-out reports. It's a little bit better than the PDF that you can do in here, where you'll be able to see those a lot easier. So help is on the way with figuring this out with some of the reports after we get this working the way that it should. Is it possible to have the window to be kept open and the date to not be changed in the meeting attendance window? So the date doesn't automatically change as far as keeping it open, because it has to go to that other submit screen. Right now, there's no way to keep that open, and it have to touch that page as well. What code do we use for attending a funeral? Good question. I always have to go back to this, y'all, because I don't oversee these. Somebody from attendance committee on here want to say, because anytime y'all have questions on like which one of these codes, I always have to send it to death immediate family. Here we go. So it looks like it's going to be that parent excuse custodial written, that PE code. Dr. K. Warfield is the one that I would say always email questions about which code to use, because she advises, because she oversees this attendance manual right here. Is there a way to pull an attendance report with the comments? Kathleen, not currently, but it's on one of my list of reports to create for us to run now that we can kind of do this. Jana, can you also show the attendance preference screen set up to do this method? Yes, I showed it just a second ago, Jana, so hopefully you've got that. I also have it in that email that I sent to tech directors and PowerSchool contacts when I let everybody know that this update came out there. What is the best report for attendance profiles per student to print? For truancy, since we've lost the attendance profile. Y'all, I know. I'm like, this makes me sick as well, and I've got a ticket in with PowerSchool. I got Mickey right here. This report was the report that we all used. Y'all, I'm going to be honest, I have no idea of all of the issues that Power School could work on for updates and fixes, why they touched this report. I know we all use this attendance profile. It was the best report to pull for those attendance codes per day. And it's now an HTML page, and it prints like crap. I'm just sorry, that's what it is. It prints like crap, and so it's not what you need. I put in the ticket with Power School to say this has got to be fixed. I've got Russ, who's my developer, working to see if there's any way he can get it to be a PDF format. So I'm busting tail trying to get that report back for you. Right now we haven't. It's I don't know why they did that, y'all. I just do not understand it. It was working. Our homeroom is from 7:55 to 8. When a student checks in at 8 and marked UA for homeroom and the TU is for first period, is that the correct way of using those codes? Yes, so Donna, if they came in like during that first period and they did miss all of homeroom, then yeah, you would put whatever absence reason because they weren't in that homeroom at all, and then you would put the tardy on first, which should trigger the tardy over there for the entire day. I will say this, y'all. How many of you? I don't even know how many I have on the call. We've gone an hour and a half now. Still have almost 200 people. How many of y'all have like constructed a kind of interesting bell schedule because y'all had to like put in this bridge period? Like maybe you're at a multi-period school. I see this a lot in like K-12 schools. I know at my old middle school, we used to run a different bell schedule for 6th, 7th, and 8th. So we had a bell schedule that had 20 periods, but we had to create this bridge just so they could take attendance and it be a common period. We can fix all that. We can get rid of those and move to a different schedule moving forward. If any of y'all have those kind of situations and y'all want to schedule a time for us to kind of talk through your bell schedule to see if we can make it a little cleaner and a little easier now that we have this, y'all please feel free to reach out to me and we can talk about it, each scenario by scenario to try to help y'all out. Because I do believe we can make some of these screens a lot easier to use now. Oh, I just lost my place. Y'all are coming in hot and heavy with the questions and I love it. Oh, I lost my place. Hang on, y'all. Sorry. Yeah, of course not. Oh, here we go. Johnson, is there an optional change if our attendance is working for us? We do daily and meeting depending on the school. I mean, James, if y'all are collecting daily, because that's the thing, you have to make sure daily is now turned on in all the schools. If what you have is working, do you have to swap to it? Absolutely not. But I'm telling you, this will take steps off of your day if you do swap to it. Deanne, since we have no excused absence code anymore, is early dismissal the appropriate code to use if a student checks out due to illness or the nurse sends a student home? No, that should be that DE code we talked about earlier. Be very cautious about using that early dismissal code because it's determined by the LEA or the superintendent. So it's a safety, security, severe weather thing. That's not just a kid leaves early code. That's why I say really make sure that you look at these code definitions. Brenda, if a teacher does that, should it not still reflect the student as being tardy to class? Oh, Brenda, I'm not sure where we were at in that. If you can put back in chat like exactly what it was, I can go back to it. Man, I see some of y'all in there answering questions for me. Shout out to my team. Russ, if a student shows late for school because of court, are you saying we don't do a check-in because legal is a present code? So for those where you're giving credit for it, if you do that check-in, it's going to take minutes off the day, so you wouldn't do it on that. You would say that they were present they were off campus, but they are in that present situation for you. Rick, what was the learning pref plugin called again? Rick, it's something to the name of display learning preferences or show learning. It was a plugin off Power Source. So look up anything that's got the name learning preferences in your plugins and see if you have it. Where can I access the attendance manual? So if y'all aren't familiar with the Live Binders website, that's the data code manual, which really gives the definitions of every code inside of Power School. Like you want to know what your enrollment codes are, your attendance codes, all your demographic, career tech, special programs, like all this. If you've never seen that, I'm going to put this link back in chat. Oh, go back home. because this will lead you to everything. And under the attendance section, you'll see this link to the codes right here. I tell everybody bookmark this. I've actually got this bookmarked on the Alabama Power School website that we maintain. Is there a specific code we should use for students checking out to take the driver's test? So I think that is district decision on that, because some allow it to be counted as things. Check with Dr. Warfield, because she needs to advise on that. But she's going to say use district policy as to what you classify it as. We're still occasionally seeing a different student's name in the daily attendance calculation screen than the student we modified in meeting. This happened while I've been in a meeting. I think it's been worked on one or two. If anybody, because we have tried to replicate that and I can't, if any of y'all can get a screencast of that happening, because I've had a couple people tell me about it, please do and email that to me, because that's going to help the developer see what is going on with that. So if you have seen it where you are marking on a meeting record, but when the daily screen comes up, it's got another kid's name, please send me like a video of that so I can send to the developer. All right, Allison said, I'm confused about the explanation on the question Russ asked about legal. So legal is a present code. When you are using these present codes for kids, and when they're coming and going from school, those are not check-ins and check-outs, because check-ins and check-outs are going to remove minutes from the overall day. Okay, that is what that clock in and clock out feature does. Present codes don't remove minutes, and that present code doesn't override the minutes. So you're to use that present code in the place of the period in which they are out, but you don't process it as an actual check in or check out. It was the same way with COVID, and we saw so many people doing that incorrectly, just not realizing how that worked in here. So with these present codes, so let's say a kid was, they were marked absent, and then you find out they were in court, because court documentation, if they bring that is a present code, because they were required by that government agency to be there. So we don't count that against the school or the student. You would remove that absence, and you would just put that it was legal in that first period. You don't do it as a check-in or check-out. You would just, let me go to this here. Let's just do it on a kid. So let's pretend that Aubrey right here was marked absent because we didn't know, but then Aubrey comes in at the end of first period and says, hey, I was out at the court. Then what you would do is you would go into this record, and instead of doing it as a check-in, because we don't want to take minutes off the day, we're giving her credit for it, that first period, you would mark it for legal, and then she's present the rest of the day, because that's going to give an overall present value for the day. Again, it's still coding that legal, but we're getting that part fixed. So we don't want to take minutes off for those present codes. So when you're sending them on a field trip, when you're sending them to a football game, to a cheerleading competition, to a wrestling match, to a basketball game, you don't process them check-ins and check-outs. You just put the codes on the periods that they're not going to be in the class. That way they're denoted as they are being with the school, but not in the classroom at that time. Brenda, you were talking about changing the tardy to present if a student comes in late. Shouldn't the student still show as tardy for the class? Yes, that's what we were saying in that when you have that the nomenclature inside there is going to say, hey, you've missed 5%. This needs to be a present code, but the present code we use is a tardy because they did miss some. Rick, yes, disable that plugin because it will mess with the daily code calculation, and it'll mess with it pushing forward in the periods. We found it where in one district it was just preventing the new update from working at all. Shelley, if you have students enrolled at a school where they live, but they are remotely enrolled into another school, will it affect anything other than the daily code? Our FTE is meeting the correct number of minutes. Yeah, and we kind of addressed that at the beginning of the webinar, Shelley. So make sure to go back and listen to that whole explanation if you didn't catch it. All right, Twin said, please remember there's a distinction between present codes that count in ADA, DE, but those aren't present codes. Those are absence codes. And present codes do not. I think you had a typo on that one, Twin. Russ, tardy excused is also a present code. Yes, but we use tardies when they actually do miss minutes of the day. So they were actually out, but not for some legal reason, present reason, things like that. When using a legal code, you have to have an excuse from a court system that says that is correct. You should have that actual documentation. So make sure, again, go by the letter of this right here. There has to be documentation. You have to have DHR documentation. Court, like legal is not just anything. Like, because sometimes they'll come in, will say, yeah, I had to go do XYZ. Well, unless they come and actually have that documentation, then you do not use that legal code. What should we mark if a student is out for a long period of time due to legal actions such as pending felony charges? Y'all, questions like that really need to go to Dr. Warfield. If y'all do not have her email, I don't know if Dr. Warfield is on here or not, but she heads the attendance committee and she can advise on every one of these, because I have to kind of defer all of those questions to her, because I'm here to show you how to do power school. They have to help with like policy compliance. Brian, students marked as tardy in first period without a check-in, check-out record created show a mismatch on the daily calculation page. It's showing the plugin wants to flip to a present to a tardy code for the day. Is this expected behavior? Yes. Currently, yes, but that's also one of the things that we're working on, is that our developer is looking, if it's not seeing any of those minutes meeting, to keep that present code there. It's kind of like the same thing on those school activities and stuff, that we just still want that present code on the overall daily side. So that piece is actually is being worked on, Brian. Yeah, it's trying to set it to that overall, even though it's not a check-in tardy. It's that classroom tardy that doesn't need to go to that daily side. So we're working on that little buggy part of it. We are a safe and civil school that documents tardies for classes, not check-in. Is there a different code that we can use to differentiate? Unfortunately not. The codes are going to be the same. What is going to differentiate is that actual check-in and check-out record. And if y'all don't know it, there actually is a clock in, clock out report. So I can, let's see if I can go run this right quick. I'm just going to run it on the one kid that I've got. Let's run it from today to the first of school. I want both. So if you do need to see a report, I mean, this report is okay. It's not my favorite, but it'll pull the data. It'll allow you to see who's actually the check-ins and check-outs tardies for students. So if I open this, it didn't pull anything. Of course not. I think I picked a kid that had a check-in, check-out. It should work for you. If it doesn't, let me know. We need to put in tickets on that. But that's all. Oh yeah, that should have some in there. So we need to look at that one. How to get to that clock in, clock out report. So it's under system reports. So if you're in the old UI, under reports on the left, system reports, or if in the new UI, it's data reporting, reports, system reports. It's right up under that attendance profile, clock in, clock out report. As we get some of these better reports built for you, we'll be able to have those clear distinctions between those tardies that are just tardies to class versus those that are actually associated with a check-in, check-out, so that we don't have to go to separate codes for them. We just need tardies for discipline, not check-in and out. So we run just TU for the code. Yeah, and that's why we're going to need to create some kind of separated codes. So that'll be stuff that will, most likely there'll be enterprise reports, might be some page reports in here that we'll be able to get those in there. Should we be rerunning the daily calculation corrections now or wait until the plugin stable? You can do it now. I mean, we can do it at any point in time, Brian, even as we make the updates. When we get that secondary push of the getting that tardy code right in there, like I said, in your overall calculation to the state, it's still going to get the right 0 or 1, putting either the tardy or the present code in there. So that's fine and what we're good with, but we'll get it as soon as we know that one big update is in there. I'll let y'all know, and we can just do our reconciliation across the board with it, and it'll fix them still then. We'll take it piece by piece. Because as we get this stable, then we get to start working on the two bigger pieces of this update, which is one going to be the multi check-in, check-out, because I know that's huge. Like to get that in for y'all is huge because I know what mornings look like in those front offices. The other thing that we're looking at doing, you know how like when you have a kid that's marked absent all day and you go to check them in, so you have to say, yeah, but they have this code on first period, but then you had to go touch all those other periods. We're going to try to give you a second line of subsequent periods to say, okay, change this period to tardy, but change the rest of them to present. That way you don't have to click every one. Like we're still going to back some of this off. How do I know that the daily attendance code calculation worked? Would there be no values in the list? So it'll say none, or it'll say to a code. Like you should see that submit screen where it shows that something's being worked on. Diana, is that process called recalculate daily attendance meeting? No, that's not the minutes one. It's going to be, oh, I just lost my place. So you've got recalculate daily attendance meetings, but that's not it. It's the one that says daily attendance calculation. It should be the very last one in the list, Diana. Yep, Allison, I promise y'all, I'm working on getting some more pieces to this. So this is just the beginning. And I know it's like a little bit of like an ice water bath getting used to it, but the more we get used to it, I promise it will make it easier and easier. And I've got other things up my sleeve to help y'all. I did hear at the beginning, but I should have asked if they have to have a daily code or okay, they don't show a daily code at the homeschool. So the whole goal, Shelly, is that we want to get those daily codes in at the homeschool so we can start seeing those daily codes across the state. Oh, Diana was asking about the old UI for that page. So it's the same thing. So Diana, when you're in your attendance page and you have all those tabs, click on the functions tab and it should be the very last option on that functions page, which is daily attendance calculation. Thank you, Dorinda. Daily attendance code calculation. Oh, so there's one word difference in these. All right, guys, we've made it through. All right, I'm going to stop the recording so it can start rendering because I will share that out. So stop.